Hey everyone, welcome back to So Who Are You Really? Real Life Spirituality. My name is Chris Lanning, and again, I am joined by the host of the show, Jody Lemieux and Bryan Winston. Welcome back, guys.
Hi.
Hi, Chris.
So we have worked on this. Actually, I'm going to get your opinion before we dive into this. This is kind of a wrap up to this first series that we've put together, which has basically been an introduction to spirituality. So if people aren't familiar with it, it's a great place for them to start. And if this is the first episode you're watching, please go back and do the whole series. You will learn so much about spirituality. But what are your thoughts so far? Either one of you, jump in, whoever wants to jump in on your thoughts so far we've gone through on this series.
I think it's really important to highlight the awareness and the difference between being a human, having a human experience, and being a spirit and having a human experience. I think for me, the perspective of being aware of who you are is really the catalyst, the beginning of this series for me is, who are you really? Are you recognizing, are you aware that you're a spirit having a human experience? Most of our topics have talked about this. And so for me, awareness is a beautiful place to start.
Anything you want to add, Bryan?
I want to hear Jody talk more. I'm aware of that. And I'm realizing now that how succinct she can be. I tend to wander and tell stories, and Jody's like, this thing, period. Yeah,
it's almost like she puts a focus on the power of words.
It's almost as if she finds language to be really important. It's almost as if, and she's very efficient with her language.
Yes. And what I have gathered over this episode, this series, is how much humor you two have. And it inspires me to share stories and share my humor as well. So I'm looking forward to season 2, bringing laughter and humor to our conversations.
Awesome.
Yeah. What I forgot the name of I think it's Fran Tarkington. I'm not even a big football person, but apparently he was a famous quarterback. If you're not having a good time, you're doing it wrong.
Nice.
I think laughter is an indication that you're having a good time. So like we're talking about a subject that could be potentially serious, I guess. But if we're not having a good time, what are we doing?
Spirituality needs to be enjoyable, right?
Right. Yeah. It could be super serious. We were talking, my wife and I, I have friends who are yoga instructors. They go on yoga retreats. I have one friend, very serious person. He's just he has a fun side to him, but he tends to show up as very serious. He's one yoga instructor, and the other one just wants to have a good time. And we've gone on yoga retreats with both of them. And, the retreat ends up being somewhere in between, where there's a time where it's very, we're very serious and we're, going inside. And then afterwards we go and have a drink and dance. Right. And how my wife's preference is the yoga instructor wants to go out and have a drink and dance afterwards. Right. And, I like a mix of both, but I think it's really helpful to like have that balance in anything that we do. That's just fun. Enjoyable.
Yeah. So again, if this is the first time you have watched an episode, really encourage you to go back. But for those of you that have been with us along this journey so far, we also want to just kind of go back through each of the episodes real quickly and hit on some of the points that came up as a result of the discussions in those episodes. So the first episode that we did was basically an introduction to not only this entity that we have put together, but also just to spirituality in general. And one of the things that came out of that was a definition for spirituality, which was that it's the essence of life, and then it involves the study and understanding of life and its nature. Does that sound like a good definition for you, or did we miss the mark on that one?
I like that. I think it's a good definition. I mean, there's so many different definitions, but I like that definition.
I agree. I like this definition.
Good. And Bryan actually backed it up in episode 4. I was going through that the other day, where he said spirituality it's life. It's life. It's good. Another thing that came away was embracing spirituality involves recognizing the spirit within and then radiating love throughout the physical reality. Yay, nay? You like that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a Jodyism.
Probably. What was it? The love and the radiation, right?
Yeah, love and radiation of spirit. I love that idea. Yeah, it's a beautiful idea. Can you repeat that again, Chris? Can you repeat that quote?
Sure. Embracing spirituality involves recognizing the spirit within and radiating love throughout the physical reality.
Man, I like that quote. Jody, put that on your website. If that's not on your website or your business card or something. Beautiful.
And then the other thing that we discussed, and this one was just more of a summary, what I had of it, was that, we talked about for people of faith like me, who sometimes the word spirituality kind of scares us a bit. We just said that understanding it is still important for even people with a religious background, because there are a lot of similarities. There are a lot of connections. I mean, spirit is spirit. And so if the word spirituality makes you cringe for whatever reason or worry about it, then learn more about it. Just learn more about it. It doesn't hurt to learn and understand, right? Don't fear the unknown.
Yeah, that's something that I've learned from our interactions over the past few weeks. I've always thought that the word spirituality would be cringy to someone who was like atheist or agnostic, and it's come to my attention that for someone who sees himself as someone who's religious, it could also be cringy. To someone that's coming from a religious background could cause cringeworthiness when it comes to the word spirituality. I'd never really considered that.
I think it just goes back to people tying spirituality to New Age.
Oh, okay.
And New Age not always necessarily being in line with faith. And so I think there's that idea of, that's just people trying to replace religion with spirituality. So.
Oh, okay. I understand. I see. Okay. Well, that's what's come to my awareness. Jody, what are you thinking?
It's a beautiful conversation, because as you have beautifully articulated and shared about me with language is my previous background. I was a reading specialist. And when I was guiding first, second, and third graders to understand language, understand words, understand meaning, I introduced them to a term called schema. And even most adults may not, or may be new to what schema is. And so if I were to briefly give you a definition of what schema is, it will help with the definition of spirituality. Schema is what our mind does when we hear and read words based on our own personal experience. So even as Chris says spirituality, Bryan, from your personal experience, you have a definition. From my personal experience, I have a different definition. And from Chris's perspective, he has a different definition as well. So I enjoy how the three of us are coming to a common place of defining spirituality for our current audience.
That's awesome. All right. Well, let's move on. Episode 2, we talked about spirituality as a human experience. Jody brought up the great concept that, this is a takeaway you need to have. Things happen for us rather than to us. And we have that perspective shift, and it shifts us from a victim mentality to a co-creator mindset. Boom, game changer right there.
Mm-hmm. Once you know that there's a choice, right? Because you could see it as life's happening to me. Like, you could see it that way. That's an option. And there are situations that have happened have happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to both of you. It may happen again. Probably will happen again. Where I'm like, this is happening to me. And that is a perspective. But once we realize that there's another choice, I think it starts as we practice looking at it as if this is happening for me. It starts to become a more enjoyable experience.
And another point that we came up with, and I think this actually was more from Bryan, was that when you're in a situation, let's say you have a reaction, somebody has a reaction, instead of necessarily getting defensive, be curious about it. I think he was like, so why did that happen? Why did they react that way?
Mm-hmm.
Because love, appreciation, and curiosity all have the power to transform our experiences. That was one of the takeaways that we came away with from that one. So that was a good episode. That was episode 2. Now, episode 3, we went into recognizing and practicing spirituality. Now, I have to admit, we didn't get very far into the practicing part. So I have a feeling that's going to show up some more in the next series. But one of the takeaways is that spiritual practice is, it's a practice, as Bryan said. It's an ongoing journey of self-awareness and observation. It's not a destination. It's a process.
Mm-hmm.
Left him good on that one. All right.
No, I was waiting for Jody because so yeah, it is a practice. It's a spiritual practice, just like you have a law practice or a coaching practice or any practice. Like, it's a practice. It's something that you just come back to. It's not something that maybe people achieve enlightenment, or but I'm sure they're still in their practice. It's not a destination.
I would agree. A spiritual practice is life, and how you observe life, how you're aware of yourself. And I'm grateful we called this podcast "Who Are You?" because it really is an unfoldment of a journey of you. Mm-hmm. As you live this life. Spirituality is you practicing being who you are in this life.
Mm-hmm.
And one that Jody came up with, also a point. I liked how instead of, we always talk about being in the present moment, but Jody, you have a slightly different term, which you call?
The now moment.
Now moment. Yeah. And how it's very important to be in the now. And that makes a little more sense. I mean, I know present and now are essentially the same thing, but I just think now hits a little bit better. It's now. It's now. It's not this ethereal present time. It's now. And we talked about how being in that moment, and also we then spun that off to like connecting with nature as well, can all be a part of the spiritual practice.
Mm. Yeah.
So episode 4, we dove into how our consciousness impacts our physical experience. Now, quite simply, the first takeaway was that focusing on positive thoughts and feelings can lead to improved well-being. But I think we didn't want to leave it. Go ahead, Bryan. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's funny. Jody and I had a side conversation about this probably about a week or so ago. That there's there's focusing on negative thoughts and negative or destructive thoughts. I am bad. I am less than. My life sucks. That kind of stuff. Then there's my life's good. Is focusing on positive thought. My life is good. My life is positive. I am beautiful. I am light. And then there's focusing, we just talked about, on the now. And, it's not focusing on either one or judging as good or bad, but it's just focusing on this is the truth of what's happening now. And that's also an option.
I think it came down to authenticity. Like, you can just sit there and say, everything's positive and great, but there's got to be some basis in reality for it too, to really make it connect, which is why you said the now moment. Let's focus on the positive things that are happening to us now, Right.
And Jody, I'd love to hear more from you, but at the same time, it's like we could see things as good, we could see things as bad, we could just see things as they are.
And when we came on this conversation, we talked about finding the blessing in every moment, even in this now moment, finding the blessing in it. And I'm going to bring humor. Laugh about it. Laugh about something that... So I'll give an example. I like to bake. Baking is one of my favorite things to do. And I've had experiences where our oven broke and it locked itself, and my cake got stuck in the oven. So what could I do? I just ended up laughing because the door locked, and other than breaking the oven open was our other option. And thankfully the oven turned off. Rather than staying on and continuing to bake it, it just shut off and locked the door. So we brought humor to it, and I ended up going to the store, buying my mother this beautiful cake, and I continued to see the blessing in it. So humor is a very beautiful interrupter to what's going on in your physical world.
Mm.
One of the other takeaways that we also had from that episode was that curiosity and self-awareness are key in understanding the messages our bodies are sending to us. So again, we were talking about physical experiences, but it's not just, thinking our way into necessarily better, feeling better, which is certainly one way. But Jody, I think it was Jody that outlined the fact that a lot of those physical elements are the body sending us messages having to do with our consciousness. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
If I messed that one up.
No, it's all good. So yes, there are common phrases we speak that show up in our physical ailments, as well as our beliefs. So if we carry a belief, and Bryan so beautifully said, the I am statement. So if you were to claim I am sick, your physical body will show up sick. It's the power of our body's cells. Our cells within our body give us messages constantly. A bumping of the knee, a headache, or fever. These symptoms are just messages to let us know there's something going on within us to be aware of and to pay attention to.
All right. So we wanted to keep this one relatively short and we're going long. So I'm just going to quickly cover. Episode 5 was living from love versus fear, a spiritual reframe. I'll give you some quick points here, but you need to go check that one out because that is such a huge, huge thing. And it's basically that fear and love are two sides of the same coin. And I can't believe Jody said this, but if we embrace and love our fear, that can lead to personal growth and transformation. That's a tough one. Love our fear, love our hate. Okay.
Well, we can go to our definition. Yeah, I agree, Chris. That is challenging. I think Jody smile. I see Jody smiling. I think she agrees as well. But we can also go to what is love? If we start looking at our definition of what is our definition of love, and maybe one of our definitions of love is positive attention. You love someone, you pay positive attention to them. So paying a positive attention to your fear. I'm afraid. I'm feeling fear. What is going on here? What is this about? Like, what is this? What's really happening for me? Maybe that's positive attention. Maybe that is love. Not like saying, "Oh, I love the fact that my leg just got cut off." I love the fact that my bank account is zero. It's not. I don't think it's. I think that I don't think that's what we're saying. I think it's paying that positive attention. Oh yeah, my leg is cut off. Oh man, I have a negative balance in my bank account. Right.
All right. So definitely check out that episode because there was a lot of great stuff in that. Now, that was the first 5 episodes, the wrap-up one, but we did want to leave you with another takeaway from this episode. So, Jody, Bryan, you can decide who goes first. What is the one thing the listeners, the viewers can do to start a spirituality practice? A nice, easy way to get them started on that journey.
Go ahead, Bryan. I'll defer to you first.
I would say that if you're listening to this, you're already doing it. Right? You're already paying attention. You're already looking inside. If you've listened to any of this or you've listened to this whole series, there's a reason why you're here. And I would say that if you're in this conversation, listening to it, participating in it, then you're already doing it. You're already in your practice.
Jody?
I would agree with Bryan. You're already in your practice. And what I noticed for myself in my own personal journey was my curiosity. I started becoming aware of how curious I was about different topics and about different beliefs that I've carried all these years, and started to question, well, why do I believe these beliefs? So curiosity is another one I would like to highlight.
Awesome. Thank you. I will say the more that we talk, the more that I see, so I guess I'm well along my way in my spiritual journey as well. All right, that wraps up this introductory series. Hopefully in the next month or so, we will be dropping our next series. We are going to have some great stuff for you, I'm sure. But stay tuned. We'll see how that goes. Don't forget, we'd love to hear from your feedback on this series. In each of the episodes, we often asked you to give us some feedback on things or to tell us how your spiritual practices, what they are, what you do. We really do want to hear from you. So check out the show notes, find out how to get in touch with us, and let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And if you have questions, things you want to know about, send those along too, then we can include them in a future series. Jody and Bryan, this has been a great kickoff for this show. Great series, and I look forward to the next series.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Bryan.
Thanks, Jody. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate the conversation.
Have a great day, everyone.